Good morning and welcome to Donna Davis Presents. I thank you for joining me this morning as I begin to talk about criticism and how, when done in the right way, can yield positive results for everyone that is involved. Again, this is Donna Davis Presents, where I look to help you take the inspiration that you get from other people, the inspiration that you have, even within yourself, and take it to the next level so that the greatness that is in you can overwhelm your existence. And I know a lot of times we don't feel so great, or we feel like we can't make a contribution, but it's because of years and years and layers of this thing called life. And today I want to tap into just one small part of that so that we can begin to chip away or continue to chip away at those things. So today we will be discussing building up others. Building up others. Now, I know that you are probably familiar with the game called Jenga. Jenga is a great game because what it is that you have all of these blocks that you have to build up into this high stack, and you lay them out in alternating stacks. And one by one, someone is supposed to push out a block and reposition it on the top. So as the stack gets close to its demise, we begin pushing these blocks out with just a bit more care. And sometimes we're even holding our breath as if breathing over the blocks will cause the structure to come down. The goal is to pick a block that the structure does not need in order to remain standing strong, but it's getting unstable with every block that we move. We're destabilizing it. And when it comes to the point where the person finally pushes out that block that causes the whole structure to come falling down, we go, oh man, I was about to not pick that one. And everyone else around us begin to laugh because they are glad that it was not them. Imagine if Jenga blocks had feelings and we built it up and it was the strong structure, and it would be feeling proud. And then imagine people coming by and pushing out pieces, one piece at a time, until you had no choice but to fall down into a pile of despair. Now, the pieces that the people would try to remove from us represent things that we really need in order to live at our optimal level. And some of those things could be like our self-esteem, our confidence, our gifts, our talents. And you may say, people don't remove those things from us. How would people remove those things from us? How would we remove those things from other people? How would we remove them from ourselves? One word: criticism. Now, people may not know the inner struggles that we have because most of the time we like to put on a facade where we're smiling or behaving as if we are in control. There are some people that are intimidated by confident people. So they'll say things like, she thinks she's something. Look at her. She act like she forgot where she came from. Well, I remember where she came from. That type of criticism is not helpful to anyone. And if we criticize with the intention of making someone feel dejected, then we are wrong, because wrong criticism removes vital pieces from people's lives. And we need to bring that to an end. And we need to start with the criticism that we deliver to others. Criticism is an expression of disapproval of someone or something based on what we perceive mistakes and faults to be. Negative criticism is voicing that objection only with the purpose of proving someone's wrong or proving that you're more right. Like, I can feel better about myself if I make you feel less than about yourself. It emphasizes the downside of something. So a couple of examples of negative criticism, and you may say, oh, I'm just stating my opinion. Well, a lot of times our opinions criticize people. For example, if you looked at what somebody was wearing, and I know a lot of us probably have done this from one time or another, looked at something that somebody had on and go, oh my gosh, why did they put on that? That is not flattering. It makes them, oh my goodness, it makes them look like a loaf of bread. Why do they have that on? Or someone else may begin reading, and we hear them read and they're mispronouncing words, and we laugh. You're 30-something years old. You can't read? Oh my goodness. Could you imagine how something like that can make someone feel? I mean, as I stated before, that's removing vital pieces that someone needs in order to mature, in order to grow. Neither one of those type of criticism that I just referenced can help someone. And the sad part about it is that these type of criticism are like blocks, building blocks in someone's life. And we remove them every time we laugh, every time we talk about them, every time we criticize them. But they really need to be stabilized and not pulled out. Because what happened is, after we laugh, after we get with our friends and say, oh, I bet she won't be wearing that anymore, we go about our business, thinking about all of the blocks that our brothers and our sisters have had removed. Doesn't mean anything to us. It's no big deal. But the person is left, in a lot of cases, feeling devastated because they stepped out. They tried something new. They embraced a fear, which is so wonderful. And they trusted that they usually, in a way that they usually don't. But then it all comes crashing down around them because they get criticized. And so they run back into the hole. They run back into the corner. They run back and close the door. And sometimes that energy, that spark that they had, never emerges again. But we don't know that. We don't even care about that because it was a moment in time for us. I just want us to really think about how we criticize people, and especially when they hear that criticism and the way that it's done, if it's not helpful, that it harms them. It harms them. Um, you know, we can even think about if we've ever been made to feel less than everyone else in the room because of maybe a presentation or whatever it was that we were charged with, that we really didn't do that well with it. And everyone wants to point out that we did not do that well with it. I promise you, the person knew that they didn't do that well, unless they had pride issues. And then that's another issue that we can talk about, how we can criticize in a way that can help people. So how can we reverse the game of Jenga in our lives and someone else's life? Instead of blocks being removed, that they are strengthened and our structure is stronger than it even appears. You see, the goal in Jenga is to remove blocks that the structure doesn't need in order to remain upright. Because the only goal is that it remains upright. There are times that people may need criticizing, but the criticism does not always have to be negative, because people shut down and they throw up defenses when they are negatively criticized. So we need to strengthen each other and we need to build each other up, just in our everyday instance. So let me give you an example from my life. I, at one point, had landed what I considered my perfect job, because I want to give speeches, I want to be motivational, I want to give keynote addresses, I want to do all these things. And I landed this job, and it was a training job. That was it. You write training, you deliver training, you test on training. It was perfect. And the very first time I went out to conduct a training, it was on customer service. And I was so nervous and so excited all at the same time. And I went out and did the training. And I was like, whew, that was great. But it was one of these trainings where you get feedback, because my job, of course, we were training. So we wanted to know the feedback of the trainers so that our training could improve. So I remember the day that I got the email that said, here are the survey results. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was nervous. I was scared. I was like, what if they didn't like me? And oh my goodness, I took a chance on this job. And it was right there in front of me. So let me just share with you a couple of the responses that I got in that survey. And this was back in 2014. And like I said, I had conducted a training on customer service and how to give correct customer service. So here are a few of the actual respondents. The presenter was very engaging. I enjoyed her presentation. That was the very first one. I was like, whoo, okay, this is good. Another one. I really enjoyed the presentation. It reminded me that you have to be professional at all times and learn to remain calm. Very good lesson to learn from a customer service training. And this was another one that I was like, wow. I felt knowledgeable of professionalism and customer service prior to the event. I enjoyed this segment. This portion of training helped me to be more diligent in my services to clients. So as I was reading, I was like, oh, yes, God, thank you. I knew I made the right decision. This is great. And in the midst, and there were several more, and in the midst was this one response that literally made me want to go back to my previous job. And quite frankly, stop presenting. And that one is, let me see if I can find it here. Here it is. Presenter need to be a little less dramatic in her demonstrations. I didn't need a comedy show. Now you may say, well, that wasn't bad. But for someone who likes to be animated, someone who likes to be able to draw people in by letting them know that, she fully understands what it is that they are dealing with. It was kind of like coming after a cornerstone of how I had built myself up to be. And I went into one of my coworkers' office and I said, I don't want to train anymore. Like I said, you may say, oh, that's nothing. But that was criticism. And yes, we have to be able to take criticism. But let's look at this from the point of view of the person giving and or receiving criticism. Does it need to be negative? Presenter need to be a little less dramatic in her demonstrations. I didn't need a comedy show. I learned something about myself that day because the other presenters, the other respondents, energetic presenter and all that other stuff. I'm like, what about this one person? I don't want to be the one person in somebody's life that criticize them to make them not do what comes natural to them. I don't want to be that person. So, let's go back to our earlier example, the one where the person was dressing a weird kind of way. What could we have said instead of, oh my gosh, you look terrible. Woo, what were you thinking? Don't do that again. What if we had said something to the effect of, interesting style. You usually dress a little more conservatively, so I'm kind of curious as to why you changed things up today. Why did you mix your prints and your polka dots? I find that interesting. And it may be then that you discovered that they always like to mix patterns and wanted to give it a try. Or they may say that the light in their house went out because they couldn't afford to pay their electric bill. And because of how early they had to get ready, they just had to pull something together because their ride was arriving and they didn't want to make the person wait. That would cast a whole nother level. But the reason why we don't know that is because sometimes with our criticism, we don't seek knowledge. We don't seek knowledge. And when we are giving criticism, even when we're filling out surveys or giving our opinions or something, we need to give feedback that is actionable. That means that the person can actually do something about it. It's actionable. To tell me that my personality gets on your nerve is not telling me how I can help in that situation. And then again, I may not be the person that need to be training you, that need to be motivating you. But we need to be able to give actionable feedback. So one of the actionable feedbacks that I received in that training, let's see if I can, here it is. I feel as customer service, which is the segment that I taught, and client services, that was a segment that someone else taught. Okay. I feel as customer service and client service could have been combined, with each presenter having 30 minutes so that we could have more time to spend on, and they named the other area that they thought more time should have been spent on. And when I read that particular feedback, I said, you know what? That is right, because this other area was the main part of their job, and the time frame proved to not be enough time frame to cover it. So the next time we conducted the training, and yes, I did go back out and train. I got over myself and over my feelings and stuff. The training was able to be cut down so that enough time could be given to other areas. And yes, as appropriate, when appropriate, I remained animated. I did. So what about the person that we talked about that read and was mispronouncing words? That person was probably embarrassed enough. It was probably one of their fears. But one of the things about overcoming our fears is facing them, and you can't face them unless you walk into them. But we end up dismissing people because we think they're not learned or they're less than us. But maybe if we took the time to seek knowledge, we may understand that maybe they had some type of learning disability, or maybe no one really took the time to teach them, even when they were in school. What would happen if we thanked them for being vulnerable and offered to help them with their sounds and words that they had problems with, because they had a great voice and the world was missing out on hearing them? Wow. What a morale booster that would be for someone. So I shared with you a criticism that I received that I could learn from and do something about once I got out my feelings. And yes, we have to get out of our feelings, because a lot of times with criticism, people may actually be trying to help, but they don't know how to help. But how some of our grandmoms would say, or some of our mothers would say, you got to know how to eat the fish and throw out the bone. If it's not good for you, don't accept it. But I only come to that conclusion from years of being criticized and criticizing other people and criticizing other people. But sometimes people do mean well. And you may say, the people I deal with, they do not mean well. And actually, it takes a level of maturity to ignore people. But I want us to be careful in ignoring people. Again, eat the fish, spit out the bone, because even negative criticism can have a way to help us if we're in a spot that we can receive it in a helpful way, despite the person giving the delivery. Now, as I said earlier, you want to give actionable feedback. meaning the person can do something about it. A lot of times we are criticized by things or for things that we really don't have any control over. And you may say, oh yeah, it was your fault you didn't learn how to read. It was your fault that you didn't pay your light bill, so you couldn't pick out what you had on. I mean, oh my goodness. And there may be some truth in that, but where we find ourselves at the moment is what we really need to be dealing with. How can I help you get better? And how can I see that this is the way that I feel about this signals that something needs to get better in me? Something needs to get better in me. So let me share with you a different type of criticism that the person can't do anything about. And let's see what happens in that situation. So I had been criticized my entire life, like from youth into adulthood, concerning something that I had absolutely no control over. None. Until recently, and I'll tell you about that. I was born with strabismus. That's the medical terminology, strabismus. And unfortunately, it is commonly known as cross-eyed. I was left feeling that I was not good enough. The popular kids didn't want me to be a part of their group. And even though I was somewhat smart, I was cross-eyed. I was defined by my flaw. I'll say flaw. It was who I was. It was how I looked. And of course, as any child, I was desperate to belong. I wanted to belong. So I did whatever I could in order to be accepted. That's what the criticism did to me. You should want to be on our team. Nobody else wants you, cross-eyed. So I did whatever I had to do in order to be accepted. I wanted others to value my intelligence. I wanted them to value the sense of loyalty that I have. And if you're one of my friends, you know I am loyal. And I wanted them to value what I think is a pretty decent sense of humor. So I kept pouring out in every arena that I found myself in. I kept pouring out because I wanted to be accepted. Pick me for your team. I'm good enough, aren't I? And with every disappointment, it just became more ingrained in me. No, you're not. I was displaying all this fire, all this energy, all of this, and I found myself being fire surrounded by water. Surrounded by water. Because everyone wanted to put me out, wanted to put my fire out. Everyone. So What do you do as a young child being kicked at, as a young child being, you know, talked about? You say, how did they talk about you? Well, when I would look at someone to talk to them, they would say, are you looking at me? They know I'm talking to them. I called them by name. Or worse yet, somebody would look at somebody else. Is she looking at me or is she looking at you? I can't tell who she's looking at. Ooh, her eyes going in all these different ways. And there was so much fire that I wanted to display. It's like water. Let's put that fire out. And people left because it was a good laugh. We don't have to hang out with her. She's cross-eyed. She's defective. She doesn't look right. So it made me look down when I was talking to someone. I would be talking to someone, I would look down or I would look away from them. Because as a child, that was really devastating to be criticized by something you have no control over. It was devastating as a child, and as an adult, still devastating. So that affected my confidence. It caused me to devalue myself. And it followed me throughout my life. Don't be water to somebody's fire just because it doesn't look like you, just because it doesn't act or respond the way that you think that it should. Don't be water that extinguishes a great burning fire. So I know you're looking at me. You're really looking at my eyes right now. And you're like, you don't look cross-eyed. So let me see. Let me look for you. And currently, my eyes are not crossed. My vision is the exact same as it was. Because as I said, devastation follows you a very long time. So when I was 46, yes, I'm older than 46, I had surgery to correct my eyes, to correct my confidence, to correct my value, only to discover, wow. Could you imagine looking in the mirror morning after morning? And because of criticism, not appreciating what you saw. So when I discovered, when a friend shared with me that there was this opportunity that my eyes could be straightened, that a doctor could actually do that. And she did that not because she was one of the criticizers. She did that because I had shared with her how the criticism over my lifetime had made me feel. So I risked blindness. You know, the doctor goes, you know, you could go blind. We're doing the surgery. I risked seeing double, having double vision for the rest of my life. Well, the doctor said, well, you may see double, and we may have to go back in and try doing it again. And I was like, I'm in. And you may say, are you crazy? You lived that long? Why didn't you go on? But what you don't understand is when we criticize people and they grow up. I had the surgery for the 6-year-old that when she bent down to pick up a pencil in elementary school, somebody pushed her into a desk and caused a gash in the middle of her head because they didn't think she mattered. I had surgery for the 14-year-old who the popular kids did not deem worthy because she didn't look right, because she had crossed eyes. We need to understand how the criticism we give people affect their lives. So I had the surgery, and I don't know what I thought would happen as a result. Because like I said, I wanted my confidence to be restored. I wanted my value to be recognized. So after the surgery, I realized I was valuable regardless. That my confidence is not in a physical attribute or what somebody else thinks. It just is. So after my surgery, I was so excited for people to see that my eyes were now straight. So something extremely weird happened. I would engage in conversation with people and it would be as normal as usual. And I would start saying, do you see something different about me? And they would be like, oh, no, I don't see anything different about you. And I would point out, my eyes are now straight. And then they would say, oh my goodness, yes, they are. Oh my goodness, they look so good. Over and over again. When I pointed it out, they would say, oh, I see it now. You see, they adjusted over time to my crossed eyes, but they never told me. So I always felt judged, even when people weren't saying anything, because I had automatically learned how to look down, how to figure out what your name is so I can call you by your name, so you know that I'm talking to you, even though when I'm looking at you, it looks like I'm looking over here or I'm looking over there. They never told me. So I still felt judged. And then I had eye surgery, risking blindness, double vision, whole bunch of other stuff. And of course, my eyes can eventually cross back up. Did it anyway. Because of criticism. But again, sometimes, one, people should not have to respond to criticism about something about themselves that they can't do anything about. It's not fair. Our criticism needs to be constructive so that people can get better. Our physical attributes, they don't define us, even if we're criticized for them. And unfortunately, we do need to grow some thicker skin until people grow a more empathetic system. We do. So our criticism needs to be constructive so that we can help people to get better. And that brings out the greatness in them, and it brings out the greatness in us. So you say, well, how do you give constructive criticism? Because I'm just like, I just tell it like it is. And if they can't accept it, oh well. You know, just like there are different stages in life. You know, we're an embryo, we're an infant, we're a toddler, you know, we're youth, we're a teenager, then we're younger, that we call them young adults before we call them adults and all this stuff. And people are at different levels and at different stages with that. It's the same thing with how we grow in our maturity and how we grow in our understanding. People are at different levels. So I'm going to share with you what personalexcellence.com gives as 6 steps in order to give constructive criticism. Again, we want our criticism to be constructive. We want people to be able to do something about it. I needed someone to say to me that your eyes make you special. They cause you to stand out. That people are drawn to you because you have a way of presenting that no one's actually looking at your eyes or your physical attributes. They're listening to what is coming out of your mouth, and it is good. And if you look this way for the rest of your life, and again, in most instances, that's the reality for people. Lift them up, build them up, build them up. They're probably already down. They need to be built up, and it is our responsibility to do that. There is no way that I should get to the top, even struggling and pulling my way and reach the top, and don't help my fellow brother or my fellow sister because I think they should be able to do it for themselves. And I've shared with you just in the past couple of weeks of different flaws that I have even within myself, that it takes time to learn through this process of things called life. And that's why I'm committed to Donna Davis Presents, because I want to talk about the everyday things and how we can help each other to get better, to bring out the greatness that's on the inside of us, that greatness that can reside now while we are here. And it doesn't have to be something magnificent that other people are looking at and, oh, can they call my name? No, it's the greatness of knowing that, you know, that young man or that old man that I heard and he couldn't pronounce words, that I'm inviting him over to dinner. We're going over different sounds because I want to help him. I want to help her get better. And it doesn't have to be for the world scene, but each and every one of our lives is a world scene because it's our world and it's how we interact in it. So we see something and we're about to get negative about it. Think about how we can affect this other person, whether we know them or not. How can we affect them for good? Or we see someone getting criticized and we look at their face and we know that they're devastated, that we step up and we let them know that it's okay, that they stepped out there. And the reason the other people are laughing and carrying on is because they're cowards. They're not doing it. And they don't want you to do it either. People do need to know when they need improving or how they can improve. They do. And some people won't accept criticism, negative, constructive, or otherwise. And that's fine. You just have to understand who it is that you're dealing with. But you also have to understand if you start out negatively, you're going to shut people down. And even if you have something good to say, they're not going to be listening to you. And rightly so, you hurt their feelings. And we're all in our feelings with one thing or another, but especially our passion. We're in our feelings. So again, as I said, personalexcellence.com have 6 steps to constructive criticism. So for those of us who love to give our opinion, to someone, we have to have something to say. Oh my goodness. It's again, the dodge. If you don't have anything good to say, how about not saying nothing? Say nothing. It's okay to say nothing. It really is. If you don't have anything good to say. But I want to change that. If you don't have anything constructive to say, then definitely say nothing. So here are the 6 steps. Let's walk through these. Number 1 is called use the feedback sandwich. It's focusing on, it's kind of like, it is focusing on strength, improvement, then strength. So you start out by telling the person something good that they did. Job, activity, you hear them sing, whatever it is that you feel that you have some type of comment that you want to give them. So you use the feedback sandwich. You focus on the strength. Oh, wow. That song was really good. It was wonderful. Next time, could you try lowering your pitch just a little bit? But like I said, it was great. And you had everybody standing up. And you let them know, now this is just my opinion, this is my opinion. Of course, you can carry on as you were. It was great. It was wonderful. You reached a lot of people. Make sure that when you're using the feedback sandwich, that you let the person know that this is your opinion. And even if they don't change what it is that they are doing, that you will be supportive of them. Use grace when you're doing this. You want to always use grace. Number 2, focus on the situation and not the person. You want to tell them, In the example where I was criticized for being dramatic, the person could have said, the situation probably could have called for a little more calm. Um, you know, instead of telling someone, you went over, and this is stepping all over my tongue for those of you that know me and time frame and how I feel about time, you went too long as opposed to you went too long. Well, instead of focusing on 3 points, the subject was so great that maybe you should have focused on one to give people more time to dial in to what it was that you were really talking about. Okay. So you want to give an example. Number 3, be specific with your feedback. Telling someone that was boring, not helpful, negatively critical, that was boring. As opposed to that was boring, you could say, well, when you were talking about X, that really could have used a little bit more elaboration, because I think that really would have caught our attention deeper. So be specific, and don't use a lot of these negative things that we tend to do. Number 4, comment on things that are actionable. How can I improve? There are some things about myself that I can improve. When I was cross-eyed, I could not change that. So telling me, if you could just straighten up your eyes when you talk, that would be a lot better. Really? Comment on things that are actionable, that the person can actually improve how they deliver, how they do something, who they are. And when you comment, number 5, give recommendations on how to improve. Because again, if you're going to criticize someone, you really need to have a solution. You're boring. Oh, that was bad. Well, what would make it good? What would make it not boring? Give the recommendation on how they can improve. And keep in mind that we are all individuals. We all are not robots. So for me to expect someone to do something the way that I do it is wrong on my part. So when you're giving these recommendations on how to improve, keep in mind the person and the personality that you are dealing with. And the last one is don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. Because every time I personally present, I am so nervous. I'm a ball of nerves, and it is crazy. And people will tell me all the time, well, you didn't seem nervous. But I am every time. So don't make assumptions that just because, don't make any type of assumption, such as, somebody appearing confident. Oh, they got thick skin, they can take this. Those are probably the most fragile people that they are. It's kind of like we have to build up this facade, so you won't cover us as much or as quick or whatever. But don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. So in the coming weeks, let us focus on how we can give some constructive criticism so that we all can let a little of our greatness shine through. Just keep in mind um, that everyone is dealing with something, and that one criticism that we give them could be that block, that Jenga block, that last block that can cause everything for them to come tumbling down. And we wonder why, when people have breakdowns or they do something that's what we consider totally out of character, we'd be like, oh my gosh, not them. And that same person you criticize, same person you were taking from instead of adding to, because no one's going to be vulnerable enough to let you know that this is an issue for me. I don't think I ever, in any arena that I was in, stood up and said, hey guys, stop talking about my eyes being crossed. This hurts my feelings. We don't get that. We don't get that. Because no, the person being criticized is not empowered to stand up for themselves if that criticism is negative. So this coming week, let's think about how we criticize those around us. Even our friends say, oh, they know I'm joking, whatever. Let's see if we can change up just a little bit using the 6 methods that I gave, the 6 steps that I gave to build someone up. Can you build me up? Can I build you up? Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Donna Davis Presents. Please share this video. Please like Donna Davis Presents on Facebook as well as YouTube. And I look forward to joining you again. If you have any suggestions of topics that you would like for me to cover, please leave them in the comment section. I will go back to the comment section and read through them. And I thank you for your time today.